Hi friends, Mindy here. Welcome back to my channel and another Word Study Wednesday video. Today, once again, I'm working in my word study journal from the James Method, but I'm also going to be using these beautiful stamps from Creative Worship Stamps. This is the Peaceful Botanicals set. This set was released as part of their June release. I will put my affiliate link for both down in the description if you are interested in checking those out. I struggle sometimes, I've mentioned this in the past, with having enough room once I've added all my notes and things to add color or stickers or something decorative to my page. And so I thought this time I would try starting out with some stamping in a lighter color that I know that I can write over. So I am pulling out a couple of these stamps from the stamp set. I'm starting off with Bundled Sage. This is a Distress Oxide ink, and stamping one of the silhouette images just in a few different places. And then I'm going to move to Peeled Paint, and I'm going to pull out another stamp and just kind of stamp where I know I can get away with having some stamping, and if I need to write over that space, I can, if that makes sense. So kind of like the edge of some of the boxes and some areas where I know I'm not going to have a whole lot of writing. I did try to get this up next to that spiral, and I didn't get a perfect impression there, but I'm totally okay with that. And then trying to keep this, like I said, on the edge of the boxes, and I wanted to have, the different shades of green as well. I will come back and add a few other stamping in the end of this video as well. But for right now, I'm just kind of getting myself started here with some color. And so I'm pulling out this big botanical. I love this stamp so much, and it's pretty big. I'm going to leave it kind of hanging off the edge just a little bit. I'm stamping this one in Bundled Sage because it's light. But what I love about it, because it's just the outline of it, is that I'll be able to write right over the top, and it just kind of melts into the background, which I love. And so it still allows me to have some color and some pretty decorations on my page, but still being able to write over it, which, as opposed to using like some stickers or even, die cuts or ephemera pieces or something like that. So you can see a little bit of shadowing through these pages, but the paper in these journals is pretty thick, and so it holds up really well, and I'm not worried about a little bit of shadowing. So now getting to the actual study, I am focusing on this word uttermost. This is from Hebrews 7:25. In the King James, it reads, "Wherefore he is able to save them to the uttermost that come unto God by him, seeing he ever liveth to make intercession for them." And this verse and this section actually of verses where it's talking about Jesus, our high priest, making intercession for us and all those things, has just been something that has just been in my mind for just over a week now, honestly. And earlier in the week, I did a Bible journaling process video where I was working in Hebrews as well, the same verse, just because it just keeps coming around. I can't kind of shake it. And so I wanted to see what I could glean from doing a word study on this word. So the Strong's number is G3838. The definition is full, entire, in no wise, or uttermost. Its biblical usage is all or complete, perfect. This word is an adjective. But interestingly, uttermost is used multiple times throughout the Bible, the English word uttermost. But this G3838 is actually only used twice, once in Luke and once in Hebrews. And it's translated in Luke as in no wise, and in Hebrews it's translated uttermost. So Luke 13:11 says, "And behold, there was a woman which had a spirit of infirmity 18 years, and was bowed together, and could in no wise lift up herself." And so that's what I'm writing over here. This is just the only other place where this G3838 is used. But I wanted to keep digging into this. And so there are a couple root words which I wrote over on the other page, G3956 and G5056. And so I went over to the lexicon, which can be found on the website version of Blue Letter Bible, not the app. It's and one of the Strong's numbers that is listed is G5056. I listed all of them. They all kind of use the word uttermost or end or something similar to that. And so I want to do a little bit of a dive into G5056. And so I wanted to kind of create some delineation between these two studies. And so I added some washi tape up there at the top. And then I wrote the definition for G5056, which is end, that's the termination, the limit at which a thing ceases to be, the end, that by which a thing is finished, its close, the end to which all things relate in aim or purpose. And then I started writing down a couple of scriptures that use this G5056. Matthew 24:13 says, "But he that shall endure until the end, the same shall be saved." So that word is end. Romans 6:22 says, "But now being made free from sin and become servants to God, ye have your fruit unto holiness, and the end, everlasting life." And so now I have run out of room for taking notes. And so once again, I will actually pull out my my transparent sticky notes from Mr. Pen and the slick writer. Sorry, words are hard today. The slick writer that you need to kind of take notes. I have said this multiple times. I love these sticky notes. They're nice and thin. I like that they're transparent. I just really like using them, particularly in this journal. But one of the verses that I'm writing down here is 1 Thessalonians 2:16, which says, "Forbidding us to speak to the Gentiles that they might be saved, to fill up their sin always, for the wrath is come upon them to the uttermost." So this is where G5056 is actually translated as uttermost. In those other numbers in the lexicon, there are other verses where it's also translated uttermost. Hebrews 3:14 says, "For we are made partakers of Christ if we hold the beginning of our confidence steadfast unto the end." So here, that's where it's translated as end. And then I also wrote 1 Peter 1:9, which says, "Receiving the end of your faith, even the salvation of your souls." So again, that's translated end there. And then I went back into the text commentaries, and I wanted to write down this commentary from Matthew Henry because it's so beautifully written about Jesus as our high priest. And so what I wrote down says, "But our high priest continues forever. His priesthood is an unchangeable one that does not pass from one to another. There can be no vacancy in this priesthood, no hour nor moment in which the people are without a priest to negotiate their spiritual concerns in heaven. But this is their safety and happiness, that this ever-living high priest is able to save to the utmost in all times, in all cases, in every juncture, all who come to God by him." And I love this so much. I love the way that it's written, because when the priests in the Old Testament were having to kind of act as an intermediary for the people, they had to go in and sacrifice first for themselves, and then they would offer sin sacrifices for the people, and then they would go in and, try to make atonement. And, priests only served a certain number of years, and then it was passed on to another. But that Day of Atonement that only happened once a year. They only did that one time a year. And our high priest is always making intercession for us. He's always talking to the Father for us. And it's just such a beautiful picture. And he doesn't have to go and offer sacrifices for himself, because he was perfect and he offered his life. That's the only sacrifice that needed to be made. And so it's such a beautiful picture. And I really just am gleaning a lot from this chapter in Hebrews. I'm really, really loving it. And I wanted to just kind of dig into this a little bit more this week. And so over here on this other page, I have the root words or derivatives, G3956 and G5056. And I just wanted to quickly note the parts of the definitions of these two Strong's numbers. G3956 says individually, each, every, the whole, collectively. And then, of course, G5056 is the end or termination of something. So I'm just going to kind of write those in there. I've really wanted to make sure I just had that kind of on both sides, even though I did a little bit of a deeper dive in the notes and nuggets section. And then I'm going to date this, and then I want to add a little bit more stamping now that I know that I've got all my notes everywhere that I wanted them. And I started out, I was going to add a little bit of color to these headers, and I realized really quickly that this marker that I pulled is really dark. And you can see it in person, but on camera it just looks like a blur. I actually tried to switch to a lighter green as well, and still on camera I think it shows up pretty dark. You can read it, but it did obscure the titles just a little bit more than I would have liked, but that's okay. I know what they say. So, and then I'm going to go through with 2 different colors of marker here, and I'm going to indicate the G3838, and then I will indicate the G5056. I've mentioned that before. Having them color coordinated when I kind of have 2 studies happening at the same time just helps my brain to kind of see that they're correlated, but that they're different as well. And then I'm going to go back to my stamps now and add just a little bit more interest to my page. So I'm adding this at the top. You can see I didn't get a perfect stamping up there. Totally okay with that as well. I'm going to add a little bit more down here. I decided to pull in a line art stamp over here on the left, and then I have it just kind of hanging from the top, and you can see from the bottom as well. I added some washi tape. So that wraps it up for me. So if you like this video, I would really appreciate it if you gave it a thumbs up. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and until next time, bye.